Good evening, everyone. So today's article is on sexual harassment in the workplace. So how did the PoSH Act come into being? How does it define sexual harassment in the workplace? What does it require employer to do? What are the some serious lapses flagged by the Supreme Court? What have been the hurdles to the law's implementations? So let so this article is written by Harassment Diksha Munja. So let's continue with the today's article. 10 years after the sexual harassment of women at workplace, Prevention, Provision and Redressal Act 2013 PoSH came into force. Okay, the full form of PoSH is Prevention, Provision and Redressal Act. So this is different. The 2000 PoSH Act, the Supreme Court Bench of India has said there are serious lapses and uncertainty regarding its implementation. How was the PoSH Act formed? In 1992, Bhanwari Devi, a social worker with the Women's Development Project of the Rajasthan government, was gang raped by 5 men after she tried to prevent the marriage of a 1-year-old girl. Oh my God. While hearing pleas filed by activist group against the crime, the Supreme Court, noting the absence of any law enacted to provide for effective enforcement of the basic human rights of gender equality, guarantee against sexual harassment in the workplace, laid down sets of guidelines. 1997, to stimulate the Visakha guideline to fill the statutory vacuum till a law could be enacted. They were to be strictly observed in all places and were binding and enforceable in law. After this, the Protection of Women Against Sexual Harassment at Workplace bill was introduced by the Women and Child Development Minister Krishna Tirath in 2007. It was later tabled in the Parliament and went through amendments. The amendment bill came into force in December 9, 2013 as the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal or PoSH Act. What is PoSH Act? So that was about the history of PoSH Act. So how it was implemented and what is PoSH Act? The PoSH Act defines sexual harassment to include an unwelcome acts such as physical contact and sexual advances, a demand or request for sexual favors, making sexually colored remarks, showing pornography and or any other unwelcome physical, verbal and non-verbal conduct of sexual nature. Under the Act, an employee is defined not just in accordance with the company law. All women employees, whether employed regularly, temporarily, contractually, or an ad hoc or daily wages basis, as apprentices or interns, or even employed without the knowledge of the principal employer, can seek redressal to sexual harassment in the workplace. The law expands the definition of the workplace beyond traditional offices to include all kinds of organizations across sectors, even non-traditional workplaces. It applies to all public and private sector organizations through India. So that was about what is PoSH Act. So now what are the requirements imposed on employers? The law requires any employer with more than 10 employees to form an internal complaint committee, which can be approached by any woman employee, to file a formal sexual harassment complaint. It has to be headed by a woman, have at least 2 women employees, another employee, And the third party such as NGO worker with 5 years of experience familiar with the challenges of sexual harassment. Besides, the Act mandates every district in the country to create a local committee to receive complaints from women working in firms with less than 10 employees from the informal sector, including domestic workers, home-based workers, voluntary government, social worker, and so on. The employer has to file an annual audit report with the district officer about the number of sexual harassment complaint files and action taken at the end of the year. What are the hurdles of the Act implementations? So, what are the obstacles while implementing this Act? The Supreme Court, in its recent judgment, called out the lacunae in the constitution of ICC. So, what is the meaning of lacunae? Let's find out. Lacunae. Lacuna. Unfilled space or gap, a cavity or depression. Lacuna. Lacunae. There was a gap in the constitution of ICCs, citing a newspaper report that 16 out of 30 national sports federations in the country had not included constituted in ICCs to date. The judgment also flagged the improper constitution in cases where the ICCs were established, pointing out that they either had an inadequate number of members or lacked a mandatory external member. This, however, is not only the implementation related concern when it comes to the PoSH Act. One of the concerns is that the Act does not satisfactorily address accountability, not specifying who is in charge of ensuring the workplace comply with this Act and who can be responsible if its provisions are not followed. Stakeholders also point out how how the law is largely inaccessible to women workers in informal sector. Additionally, experts have noted that in workplaces, sexual harassment cases are usually underreported for a number of reasons. The framers of the law had recognized that complaints could be more effectively addressed with civil institutions so that work did not have to go through the daunting process of criminal justice system related to the accessibility and timelessness. However, the inefficient functioning and the lack of clarity in the law about how to conduct such inquiries have ended up in duplicating these access barriers associated with the justice system. Most importantly, the power dynamics of organization and fear of professional repercussion also stand in the way of women for filtering filing complaints. What are the SC's recent directions? The court directed the union states and the UTs to undertake a time-bound exercise to verify whether ministries, department, government organization, authorities, public sector undertaking, institution bodies, etc. have constituted internal complaint committee, a local committee, and internal committees under the Act. These bodies have been ordered to publish the details of their respective committee in their websites. So, the main point of article: the PoSH Act defines sexual harassment to include the unwelcome acts such as physical contact and sexual advances, a demand or request for sexual favors, making sexually colored remarks, showing pornography, and any other unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal contact of sexual nature. The Supreme Court, in its recent judgment, called the lacuna in the constitution of Internal Complaint Committee, citing a newspaper report that 16 out of the 30 national sports federations in the country had not constituted it an ICC to date. One of the concerns is that Act does not satisfactorily address accountability, not specifying who is in charge of ensuring the workplaces comply with the Act, nor can be responsible if its provisions are not followed. So this was a very good article on women's safety. So this article was written by Diksha Munjal. So you can go through the article on sexual harassment in the workplace. That's all from my side.